Hello, in today's coaching call, I wanted to talk about a foundational issue that comes across in all of the coaching I do. That's the basis in many ways for overcoming performance anxiety, speaking anxiety, anxiety in general in life. And that has to do with how we see ourselves, our self-esteem, our self-confidence, that so often becomes that imposter syndrome that so many of you experience. That if I get on a stage, if I perform, if I speak in front of a group, if I go to a social situation, I'm going to be found out to be not enough. I'm not going to be enough. I'm going to compare myself to somebody else. I'm going to realize that I'm somebody that's going to get rejected. And so then we avoid those situations, or if we can't avoid them, we have to speak at work or we have to lead a presentation. We can't avoid it. We just really struggle and just try to survive that. And you know what that's like, trying to overcome that anxiety, that performance anxiety, when deep down you really feel like you're a failure or you're not enough or you're an imposter. So I wanted just to share a few principles that have to do with developing a stronger sense of self, a stronger foundation for who you are, so you don't become part of the problem. You don't become the enemy. That your mindset, what you believe, how you see yourself, doesn't get in the way of success as you move forward in becoming a more confident speaker or performer. So the first principle is to see yourself as you really, really are. We're not talking about pretending and saying, I am perfect in everything. I have no problems. I don't have any challenges or obstacles. We're saying, see yourself as you really are. That includes looking at the strengths that you have. If you're really good at something, I want you to shout it to the world. I want you to say, I am good at this. I want to become even better at it. I want to present that to the world. So don't ever shy away from strengths. The ironic thing is we get afraid of being able to flaunt, to put our strengths out there, to let people know who we are. But boy, it's so easy to be afraid and to remind ourselves of how far short we fall at times. And we don't have any problems feeling that. But boy, if we want to have an area we want to improve, we see that as a deficit. We see that as something that really means we're going to be found out and get rejected. So see yourself both with strengths and your limitations. That awareness of yourself becomes a foundation for change later on as we begin to build on our strengths and then not be afraid of looking at the limitations that we have, that we put on ourselves, and say, now I want to work on that. I want to overcome that. So see yourself honestly as you really are, both positively and negatively. Second, take time and look back. Take time and look back. That has to do with, where did I come from? The reality is nobody comes into the world afraid. The only two fears that are universal for every infant is the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Everything else we learn. We learn to become afraid. We learn to fear rejection. We learn to be afraid of standing up in front of the class and giving a report, or later in life being afraid of presenting ourselves at work, in a business situation, or maybe in a social situation. So look back and say, when did this start? What were my emotional roots? Sometimes we can use a therapist, a counselor, a mentor, a coach to help us understand that. But it's not looking back to blame anybody. It's looking back to say, where did this start? At what point did I start becoming less confident in myself and more afraid of what other people think of me? And that has to do with the third principle, which is to begin to adopt a new motto for yourself. And that new motto is to be rather than to seem. To be rather than to seem. We need to stop basing our self-confidence on the frowns and the smiles of other people. So much of the time, especially if you have performance anxiety, our focus is on what they think of me. Did they like how I sounded when I spoke? Did they like my performance as a violinist? What is it that I'm looking for? And I know I did that for years as a speaker. I still do it. I still look and say, wonder what that guy looks kind of bored. he must not like what I'm having to say, or they didn't seem to laugh at my joke. Maybe I shouldn't speak. Or maybe if I go to a social situation and I don't know too many new people and somebody kind of ignores me, I start to say, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be here. This was a mistake. But that's all based on that old motto is I want to focus on how I seem, how I come across, what people think of me, rather than to say I'm going to focus on who I am. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I don't have areas to work on and strengthen, but I'm going to start to not let other people define me. And that's so critical when it comes to performance because when we let them define us, we stop being ourselves. We stop doing our best. We stop being present in the moment. And now we're focused on something outside of ourselves, something that we really have no control over. So adopt that new motto. I want to start learning to be rather than to seem. Number 4, lose your fear of perfect people. The reality is we think there's always someone better than us. And if I work hard enough, I can be perfect. And we're looking for that. We're comparing ourselves all the time to other people. But the great news is perfect people do not exist. They don't exist. The good news is that everyone, even those that we look up to, they struggle, they have doubts. Some of my mentors that I think the highest of in terms of I want to become more like that, they have their struggles. When you get to know them, they say, man, I was so insecure last night when I spoke. And I'll say, you're kidding. You look like you were so confident. Oh, no, I still struggle with that. So you're not alone in that. We want to lose, though, that fear that there are perfect people out there, that somehow I've got to become like them. And again, there's nothing wrong with saying, who do I want to become more like? I want to feel more confident. I want to work on my humor when I present myself. I want to be more centered and focused when I'm doing a musical presentation. Nothing wrong with that. But if I say, if I could only be like him, I guess I'll never be like him. I'm never going to be enough. That's where that imposter syndrome really takes root. So lose your fear of perfect people. They don't exist, even when they seem like they do. Number 5, take responsibility for only what is under your control. We've kind of touched on that. But being able to say that life is challenging enough, performing is challenging enough, public speaking is challenging enough to not only take that on, but now to say, I've also got to control what's out of my control, what people think, how I come across. Only focus on the things that you're responsible for and take charge of that. Go full force, though. Go for the things that are under your control. If you need to work on your presentation skills, say that is under my control and I'm committing to that. But if you say to yourself, my presentation skills have to be perfect, or they have to be like so-and-so, or I've got to really be more dynamic, or I got to walk across the stage and really show power. No, maybe that's not you, and that's okay. What is under your responsibility? What is under your control? Decide what that is, then make a commitment to begin to work on that. And let go of anything that you do not have control over. Number 6, develop positive self-talk. I don't know how many times and in how many ways I share this, but and I hope you don't get tired of hearing it, but that positive self-talk is so critical. We're all talking to ourselves all the time, all day long. And the goal is to say, is it positive? Is it negative? If it's positive, we want it to be built on what's true about ourselves and what we're capable of. But listen for that negative self-talk. Listen for shaming of yourself. Listen for what if I mess up? And what if I don't do well? Or what if I stutter? Or what if I blank out? All these things we tell ourselves that are negative and ironically then create a better chance of us not doing well, a better chance of actually blanking out. The more afraid I am of blanking out, the higher the chance it is that could happen. Probably won't, but it could happen. But it's going to happen less and less when we say, so what if I don't do perfectly? I'm in the process of becoming better as a performer. So what if they don't like me? I'm getting better at being in control and taking charge of myself. I'm going to listen to those words that I tell myself. The shoulds, I should do this, or what if this happens, or what if they think that. Really begin to listen for that. Change those words. Listen to the negative voice that's so quiet sometimes and so subtle, It can be as subtle as, boy, I hope it goes okay. You're going to be okay, but hopefully it goes okay. Wait a minute, hopefully it goes okay. It's going to go okay because I'm going to give it everything I can. And if it doesn't go okay, so what? I'm going to get better the next time. But that little sneaky, quiet, critical inner voice really wants to protect us by saying, well, you better be prepared for if you mess up. You better be prepared if they see through you and find out that you're not confident. And the more we start to think that way, the more we're not present, the more we're not ourselves, the more we're not being who we are. And finally, acknowledge and affirm your strengths and your accomplishments. This kind of goes back to that first point where we talked about giving yourself permission to see yourself as you really are. Write down, keep a journal, keep a log of your victories. If you say, boy, I was so terrified to perform, I was so terrified to speak at my church, but I showed up and I did it and I didn't pass out. Maybe that was your victory. You write that down. Or maybe you say, hey, I was afraid and I caught myself. I did a little quick, slow, deep breath and I got myself grounded again. I like that about myself. Keep those victories, because the ironic thing is we all keep what I call a failure log. We keep track of when we've messed up. We remember the last time we got anxious. We remember the last time we stuttered during a presentation or we panicked getting ready to go on stage. We don't forget that. And boy, if I ask you, tell me a list of all your failures, you'd have no trouble. But if I said, hey, give me a list of 10 things that you're really proud of yourself for, 10 accomplishments that you've had, 10 areas that you've grown in, 10 things that you love about yourself. Boy, that's a tough one for most people. But boy, asking you to do a list of your failures or things that didn't go well, boy, no problem with recollecting that. So be aware of that. Build that log up. I always suggest literally writing down victories in your victory log. There are going to be days where you're going to say, I can't do this. And you need to open that up and say, wait a minute, look where I was and look what I did on that date and look how far I've come with that. Start to remember that you have come a long way because you made a commitment to develop your confidence. You made a commitment to learn to be yourself, not what others think, but more of who you are. You made a commitment to stop listening to the shoulds and start listening to the voice that says, I can do this. Is it easy? No. Is it perfect? No. We're not going for perfect. We're going for growth. Day by day, step by step growth, so that you can begin to have a stronger foundation than when you started. When we look back at our emotional roots, we say, wow, look how far I've come. Boy, I remember in 5th grade, I could barely stand up in front of the class, and here I am presenting myself. Here I am giving a YouTube video. Here I am going to a social event where I don't know too many people, but I'm keeping myself grounded. I'm reminding myself who I am and talking to myself in a positive way. So take these 7 principles, review them, listen for them. They may seem obvious. You may say, oh, I've heard that. I know that. But very few people take these principles and say, I'm going to commit to working on each one of them. So I look forward to hearing from you in terms of how you've taken these thoughts and how you begin, most importantly, to apply them to your life